Let's start with what actually happened on Sunday, May 25, 2025. President Macron and First Lady Brigitte Macron arrived in Hanoi, Vietnam, beginning a Southeast Asia tour. As they prepared to exit their aircraft, Associated Press cameras were rolling. Here's what the footage shows. As the plane door opens, we see President Macron inside, apparently talking to someone off camera. Then Brigitte's arms appear. She's wearing a red blazer and she makes contact with his face. One hand covers his face and part of his nose. The other touches his jaw. It looks like she's pushing him away. Macron recoils, turns his head, then notices the cameras and immediately switches to presidential mode, smiling and waving. As they walk down the stairs, he offers his arm to Brigitte. She doesn't take it. The whole interaction lasts maybe 5 seconds, but those 5 seconds were about to change everything. Within hours, the video was everywhere. Google Trends shows the search term Brigitte Macron exploded to over 200,000 searches starting at 6:30 a.m. the next morning. People weren't just searching for Macron wife, they were searching for Macron shove, Macron slap, and even Macron wife age difference. Now, here's where things get really interesting, and where the French government made a series of catastrophic communication mistakes. Initially, according to French media reports, the Élysée Palace tried to dismiss the footage as artificial intelligence, essentially claiming the video was fake. Think about that for a second. They were suggesting that the Associated Press, one of the world's most credible news agencies, had published AI-generated footage of the French president. But this story couldn't hold. The video's provenance was ironclad. It came directly from AP photographers who were officially documenting the trip. So, the Élysée quickly pivoted. The next day, President Macron himself addressed the incident.
Fait dire à une vidéo beaucoup de bêtises. Sur ces 3 vidéos, j'ai ramassé un Kleenex, serré la main à quelqu'un et juste plaisanté avec mon épouse comme on le fait assez souvent.
He urged everyone to calm down and linked the reaction to broader concerns about disinformation. Meanwhile, the Élysée Palace settled on a new narrative. This was just a moment where the president and his wife were decompressing by horsing around, a moment of complicity. But the damage was done. Communications expert Philippe Guibert called the entire response a very poor communication exercise. And he was right. By first denying the video's authenticity and then completely changing their story, the Élysée had created exactly the kind of information vacuum that conspiracy theories love to fill. This is where the story takes a darker turn, because President Macron didn't just blame the reaction on social media hysteria. He made specific accusations about who was behind it. Macron claimed that networks that are quite well traceable, including French extremists and the Russians, were deliberately amplifying the video to make him look weak and foolish. He cited other examples where he said footage had been manipulated to spread false stories about him, including claims about drug use and confrontations with other world leaders. Intelligence experts backed him up, pointing to pro-Russian circles as the source of the video's amplification. The alleged strategy? Take an ambiguous moment and frame it to fit a pre-existing negative narrative. Nina Khrushcheva, a professor of international affairs, explained the tactic. Russian sources were using the video to counter Macron's cultivated image of toughness, particularly his strong stance against Putin, by portraying him as someone beaten by his wife. The Russian response was telling. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova sarcastically commented on Telegram. Maybe it was the hand of the Kremlin, a taunting acknowledgement of the accusations that many interpreted as confirmation. But here's the crucial question. Even if Russian disinformation networks did amplify this video, why was it so effective? And that brings us to the deeper problem. The reason this incident exploded isn't just because of Russian bots or social media algorithms. It's because it tapped into something much deeper. First, there's the Macron's unique backstory. Emmanuel met Brigitte when he was 15, and she was his 39-year-old married drama teacher. Their 24-year age gap has been a source of fascination and controversy throughout his political career. Brigitte has faced everything from being called a cougar to recent conspiracy theories claiming she was born male. This history means that any new incident involving the couple doesn't happen in a vacuum. It immediately gets filtered through existing narratives about their unconventional relationship. Second, the video itself was perfectly ambiguous. Was Brigitte being playful, annoyed, aggressive? The footage could support multiple interpretations, making it a perfect Rorschach test for people's existing beliefs and biases. Third, and most importantly, the official response amplified rather than contained the story. By initially claiming the video was AI-generated and then completely changing their explanation, the Elysee Palace created exactly the kind of confusion and distrust that conspiracy theories feed on. But this incident reveals something even more troubling about our information environment. We're living in an age where any unscripted moment can be weaponized by hostile actors. The Advocate magazine called the video a mirror than a meme, reflecting a global atmosphere of rage and aggression. They connected it to what they saw as a broader normalization of aggressive behavior in politics and society. And they had a point. The incident became a kind of international Rorschach test. Americans saw it through the lens of Trump-era political aggression. Russians used it to mock Western leadership. The French saw it as either harmless marital banter or evidence of dysfunction at the highest levels of government. This is how modern disinformation works. It doesn't create fake events out of whole cloth. It takes real, ambiguous moments and amplifies certain interpretations while suppressing others. It exploits our existing divisions and biases, using them as multipliers for manufactured outrage. The fact that a 5-second video clip could dominate international headlines for days shows how vulnerable our information ecosystem has become. When everything is content, nothing is sacred. When everything is political, nothing is private. So what can we learn from the Macron shove incident? First, that crisis communication in the digital age requires a completely different playbook. The Elysee's response, deny, deflect, then reframe, might have worked in a pre-internet era. But when everything is recorded, verified, and disseminated instantly, attempts at narrative control often backfire spectacularly. Second, that the line between legitimate news and disinformation is increasingly blurred. This was a real video of a real moment, but the way it was framed, amplified, and interpreted turned it into something else entirely. Third, that we, as consumers of information, need to be more sophisticated about recognizing when we're being manipulated. The intense public fascination with this video, evidenced by those 200,000+ searches, shows how readily we consume and amplify ambiguous content that confirms our existing beliefs. Finally, this incident shows us what the future of information warfare looks like. It's not about creating fake news from nothing. It's about finding real moments of ambiguity and weaponizing them for political gain. The Macron shove wasn't really about Emmanuel and Brigitte Macron. It was about us, how we process information, how we form judgments, and how easily we can be manipulated in an age where everything is content and every moment is political. The next time you see a political video, ask yourself, who benefits from me sharing this? What narrative is this supporting? And most importantly, am I helping to spread information, or am I unwittingly participating in someone else's propaganda campaign? Because in our hyper-connected world, the difference between the two might determine the future of democratic discourse itself.